Hey everybody, so this video is going to be a little bit different than my previous videos, but it is something I kind of want to talk about, and it's the reasons I think that Baldur's Gate 3 won't win Game of the Year. Now, before I actually get into the content, I do want to start this off with, I love Baldur's Gate 3. Like, I have over 270 hours in the game, I've been playing it non-stop. If you've been watching any of my previous videos and making the content, it's actually what inspired me to make a YouTube channel. So this is in no way, shape, or form saying that Baldur's Gate 3 is a bad game. With all that being said, I do want to kind of address the very real possibility that Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't edge out over some of the competition. Right, this year has been an incredible year for gaming. We have tons and tons of great games that have come out and that are still projected to come out before the closeout for this cycle. And for those of you that haven't tried it yet,
This guy hasn't played it yet?
Oh, fuck.
I would highly recommend that you give it a shot. It is an incredible game. I'm having so much fun, and I really think that even if it isn't your type of game, Baldur's Gate 3 can be a very fun game. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the actual video on the 3 reasons I think Baldur's Gate 3 won't win Game of the Year. So to get things started, the first reason I think that it won't win Game of the Year is Baldur's Gate 3 is a very niche game. It is a turn-based game. There's a lot to it complexity-wise if you aren't used to this kind of game. And it may just be turning people off, right? I know that we've seen a lot of people playing it, a lot of people hyping it up, myself included, but it isn't for everyone. If you look at the past 6 years, almost every game is action-oriented, right? So you got Elden Ring, you have Sekiro, you have Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, God of War. All these games are action-oriented. There's no turn-based strategy. There's not a lot of button clicks. It's just very simple to grasp and easy to play. The content itself in Sekiro and Elden Ring aren't easy to play, but once you learn the mechanics, you learn and you adapt and you evolve, but it's easy to pick up. That's the key thing. With Baldur's Gate 3, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of kind of do whatever you want, the sky's the limit, but that can be just too much for some people, right? So this type of gaming genre, it does an incredible job as far as storytelling goes. It's super fun, but the gameplay does take a lot of time. If you look at the historics for this game, for Baldur's Gate 3, about 10% of the total playtime for this game has been spent on character customization. Just looking at your model and determining what you should make it look like. I've had friends who I've recommended this game to who are avid fans of shooters and action games, and they played it for 5-10 minutes and they couldn't make it past the customization screen because of just the abundance of stuff in Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I personally enjoy that, and that's probably one of the main reasons I like this game so much, is the freedom that it brings. But when we're considering Game of the Year, we have to really put in perspective that might not edge out on a jury. So speaking of a jury, this is actually going to bring me to my second main point, right? The Golden Joystick Awards has quite a bit of community involvement, but there is a jury element that will actually determine the list of games for a category. And when we're talking about the Game Awards, right, another award, Game of the Year platform, they have a jury that is 90% of the votes, and then the community is only 10% of the votes. So it might surprise you to learn that the community doesn't actually even get to really determine Game of the Year based on which platform we're talking about. So if we switch lanes and we go back to Golden Joystick Awards for a second, many of these titles probably aren't going to be very surprising to you, right? Elden Ring won last year, Resident Evil Village won the year before that, and then we had The Last of Us Part 2, then we had Resident Evil 2, Fortnite was the year before that, Breath of the Wild the year before that, and then Dark Souls 3 the year before that. So again, a lot of action games, a lot of adventure games, but it probably doesn't surprise you that Elden Ring and Dark Souls really edged out a lot of the competition. But what might surprise you is Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls didn't win in either of their years in any category. In fact, in the Golden Joystick Awards in 2011, Dark Souls 1 didn't even make the running for Game of the Year. And that just goes to show you that the jury isn't infallible. Now, 2011 was a great year for games as well. It did have Portal 2 edging it out, but let's be honest, like, Dark Souls 1 was a masterpiece, and Portal 2 was very good for its time, but I don't see many people still downloading Portal 2 in comparison to people going back to play Dark Souls 1. Now, this was rectified in 2021, where the Golden Joystick Awards actually had a competition for Ultimate Game of All Time, and funny enough, Dark Souls came in and won that one, and that was, again, community-driven. So the community did speak up and said that this game deserves Ultimate Game of all time, and it was recognized 10 years later. So another thing you may have noticed with those games is, again, they're very action-oriented, but additionally, they also have very big titles associated with them. Capcom, Sony, From Software now. So all these larger studios have more money that they can actually put in to their advertisement and kind of getting on the better end of these private organizations, right? So let's put this in perspective with a game that many of you have probably heard about, which is Diablo 4. If we look at Diablo 4 currently, the user rating for this game is probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest, in this category of all time, right? It's currently sitting at a 2.0 user score from a AAA agency, right? Activision Blizzard. And all of the players really just do not like this game, right? If we look at just some of the feedbacks, its recent update has ruined the game for good. Don't buy this game, it's a waste of money. For 160 hours I spent on the character, they turned it into rubble. Don't waste your money on this game. Even their devs also don't know the game at all. Don't expect it will be very fun, right? There's 6,642 negative reviews for this game from the users. And so that should tell you how the community feels about Blizzard's Diablo 4. However, if we switch over to the other side of the screen, you can look at the critic reviews, where there's 89 critic reviews, and 82 of them are positive with 0 negative scores. So what does this tell us? This tells us that they are effectively being bought out, right? There is no way that there's this much of a detachment from the critics that review these games that are being paid by Activision Blizzard to fairly and justly critique this game. They are being paid to lie, more or less. They're being paid to give a positive review of a game that they maybe played for a total of a couple hours, maybe if that. And to give a perspective, right, Diablo 4's game mechanics, they're not terrible, right? The actual gameplay itself isn't bad, but there is no reason to be giving this game a 100 out of 100, which multiple private institutions did. And so we have to really compare this to the possibility that these are the types of people that are going to be deciding Game of the Year. What really astounds me is, right now, even at this current stage, Diablo 4 is considered the number 12 best PC game of 2023, and that's saying a lot for this game. Now again, I'm not here to shit on Blizzard, even though I probably have every right to, but to give you perspective again about me, I've been playing Blizzard games since like Warcraft 2, right? And Warcraft 3 was probably my favorite game for a long time, and I played Warcraft 3's custom campaigns for so long into my youth and adult life. But the sheer detachment between these critics and the public is just staggering to me, and it just really highlights the fact that it's the possibility that Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't win because a jury is paid to not review it as highly, right, or as positively. And like I've said, we've covered that there are developers out there already trying to diminish and basically tear down Larian Studios' game, right? They've basically came out and said, don't expect this from other agencies. It's an anomaly. It's this, that, and the other, right? And while they're probably right to an extent, Larian Studios has done an incredible job and has an amazing team that is willing to go the distance for their project. That isn't a bad thing. That should be the standard. But at the current state, there's just, I guess, not as many good companies that can fully dedicate themselves to a project like that. Which this kind of leads into my third and final point of just money being involved, right? I kind of touched on this already, but Larian Studios is a smaller company, right? They've done very well. They've got this great game that's come out, and I'm loving how much people are invested into it. But we have to remember that they are going against companies like Capcom, like Nintendo, like Blizzard, like From Software, bigger companies that have been around a while, have the reputation, and have critics that are willing to kind of give these scores much higher scores based on just kind of who they are. And with that kind of comes the ability for these entities to pay for a little bit better reviews, right? If we're just looking at Larian Studios, Baldur's Gate, they currently have 67 positive reviews and 1 mixed review from the critics, right? A 96 Metascore. Incredible, that's great, you love to see it. And at the same time, you have Diablo 4, which has 82 positive reviews and 7 mixed. with an average of an 86 Metascore. Now, that just goes to show that they have more people that they're willing to pay for critic reviews to boost this Metascore. And if you go through just Googling a few different articles, people will talk about how great Diablo 4 is, and at the same time, you can find just as many articles about how Baldur's Gate just isn't it, right? Isn't the game for them, there's too much to do, or it feels like a tabletop game run by a shitty DM. So it really just comes down to the community isn't what determines Game of the Year in every case. A jury is what will set Game of the Year, depending on the platform. So being a smaller studio really can kind of hinder their ability to have that farther reach. And so with that, I think I'm going to wrap this video up there. There's not really much more I can think of negatively for Baldur's Gate. Like I said again, I'm having a blast with this game. I love it. I think everyone should give it a shot, even if it's not something that they are typically used to playing. But I do think that there's a very real chance that Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't win Game of the Year just because of the IP that it has, right? Just the niche genre that it falls into, the jury potentially just omitting it because other companies are able to kind of pay for better reviews. So I think there is a very real shot that it doesn't. Now, again, I hope that's not the case. I don't want to be that guy that basically says Elden Ring is never going to be anything. It's a footnote in the world, right? Or footnote in the gaming industry. That's not my take. Definitely not. I want to see Baldur's Gate 3 win Game of the Year. If I could give it to it right now, I would. But I don't have that power. But I do just want to kind of give that different perspective. I do think that it's good to kind of foster that discussion and kind of just embrace the possibility that it might not win. One last thing I wanted to kind of cover before just fully signing off of this is, at the end of the day, Game of the Year really doesn't matter, right? If you enjoyed this game, if you enjoyed Baldur's Gate, and it is your Game of the Year, that's really all that matters. To me, this is going to go down as Game of the Year for 2023, in my opinion. And I just hope you guys had a good time playing it. So, thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and please like the video if you like it, and dislike it if you didn't, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks.